Ve'ela hamishpotim asher tosim lifneihem. There's an amazing Zohar. Elaine Sidurin de Gilgulim. This is the Seder of Gilgul. Gilgulim. Eila hamishpotim asher tosim lifneihem is talking about the Seder of Gilgulim. So they asked what's Gilgulim got to do with Eila hamishpotim? Very strange. And so the Zohar says, what's Pshat?
Didn't exist those days.
No.
No.
No. What?
Not Gilgul. What? Gilgul Neshamas.
Gilgul Neshamas.
I think it was.
What do you?
Just said only our generation.
No,
Before
no, all the way back.
When did it start Gilgul? Gilgul started from all the way back.
Yeah. No, Terech. I think Terech was a Gilgul of Kayin, or Gilgulim have been from the beginning of Maisa Bereshis. From the beginning of time, we've had Gilgulim. But what does Eila HaMishpatim got to do with Eila?
Moshe was Heber.
Huh?
Moshe was Heber.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Why they have earrings though?
He had a whole door in his.
Well, we're not talking about Eved Ivri, an Eved Ivri who said, "I want to stay here," and then they made a hole in his ear, and they. So what's Gilgulim got to do with Eila Mishpatim? It's Dini Mamanis. So there's a sefer called Degel Machane Ephraim. It's the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. Shemati, so they assume he heard it from his Zaidi. That sometimes you go to a Din Torah, and you know that you're right. But technically, you can't prove it. There's something wrong with the Eidim, they have chazakas, there's sveikas, there are doubts, and the other guy wins, and you're mechuyev to pay the other guy, and you know it's shaloi kedin. How could it be that I go to a Din Torah, if I believe in a Din Torah, and I lose, shaloi kedin? I know I'm right. I'm not faking myself out. Many people fake themselves out. I'm right. Of course, I'm right. I'm talking about a person who's honest with himself and he knows he's right, and yet the Din Torah is mechayev him. What happened? So the Baal Shem Tov said that sometimes in a previous Gilgul, that's a chiddush. We all have previous Gilguls. The Arizal says all of us are Gilgulim. We've been here already 2 or 3 times. This is a question, maybe, I don't know if it's more than 3 times, but we've been here before. And in the previous Gilgul, you owed this fellow money. In the previous Gilgul, you owed this fellow money and you didn't pay. And in order to have a clean slate upstairs, you have to get that chov off your chest. So you come back in a Gilgul, and the Din Torah comes out. It's something funny here. A funny Din Torah, whether you lost, and it's Shaloi Kedin. It is Kedin. There's no such thing as Shaloi Kedin. You do your normal hishtadlus. Don't lie, normal hishtadlus. And if you lose, you should know most of the things that happen to us, and we say, why did this happen to us? Why did this happen? And bad things happen, and it's not fair. And then you want to blame Kodesh Baruch Hu for why is he giving you a raw deal? He's not giving you a raw deal. It's all because of a previous Gilgul, and you're paying up your previous debts. That's what it means. Eilin Sedurin de Gulgolo. It means the Bayrei Yisborach. He was Bayrei the whole world, and he created all the neshamas, and he knows exactly he knows all the Gilgulim in the Koidman, the previous Gilgulim, what happened, Ish Lachavero, and he's Mesavev all the Sibuvim, he's Maneg al Pitera, in order to get that you should get upstairs with a clean slate. That's the Degel Machane Ephraim.
Why don't we remember those Gilgulim?
Some people
That-
do.
Like, what's the problem? Like,
No, Kosh Baruch doesn't want that. We don't remember anything that happened upstairs in order to give us free will. If we would remember what would happen, we would lose our free will. If you knew what was really going on, you would be a robot in your avodas Hashem because you would be forced to be a good boy, right? And the Kosh Baruch doesn't want that. He wants you to have free will, huh?
what about people who do remember?
They don't remember. They're making up.
You wouldn't necessarily lose your free will.
If they remember bits and pieces in such a way that they don't lose their free will.
I mean, they're choosing to believe it.
Or no, they're given certain incidents they're allowed to remember, but the main parts they're not allowed to remember. They may remember they were a Gilgul, but they won't remember, everything that we're going to talk about a little bit more. So along comes a Sefer, the Hasidic Sfarim, and they say that the Maggid of Mezrich went and he asked this kasha to the Baal Shem Tov. What does it mean that these are the laws of Gilgulim? So, what's the connection of why the Zohar have to give such a strange perush on the words Elo HaMishpatim and come up with the whole concept of just say Elo Mishpatim is all the laws of the monetary laws of torts, the laws of damages. Why do you have to come up with a mystical incarnations of souls, reincarnations of souls? So according to this Sefer, the Baal Shem, whether this actually happened or it's a moshel that the Maggid of Mezrich said, I can't verify. The Sefer says that the Baal Shem sent the Maggid of Mezrich out to a forest, said, go to that tree, certain tree, near a stream of water, and I'll just sit there and wait until the evening. When the Maggid got there, he saw that there was a armed man. He had in those days whatever was a sword. He was armed, and he had a horse, and he was very, very tired. And he stopped to rest. He ate a little bit, and he drank, and he lay down a little bit And when he got up, his wallet fell out of his pocket. And he got up and he rode off on his horse. Then another man came and he saw the stream and the tree and he wanted to rest a little bit. And he looks down and there's the wallet on the floor, on the ground. So he picks up the wallet, puts it in his pocket and walks off. A little bit while later, a third man comes. And he was obviously very, very poor and very exhausted. And he sat under the tree. He ate a little. He had some bread in his knapsack. And he drank from the well, and he lay down, he tried to go to sleep. Then the first guy, the guy who was armed to the teeth, he was obviously a very strong guy, and he was very, very rough and rugged. So he came back, and he says, "Where's my wallet?" He says, "I don't know, what wallet? Don't lie to me. I left my wallet here, you took it." "I don't know what you're talking about." He denied it. And of course, this he's a brute, and he didn't believe it, and he started beating the living daylights out of the guy. "Give me back my wallet." And the guy says, he kept on, "I don't have the wallet, I don't know what you're talking about." Finally, he patted him down, sees there's no wallet there, and he went off. Comes the time for the Maggid of Mezrich to leave. He goes back to the Baal Shem, and he tells him everything that he saw. So the Baal Shem says, in a previous Gilgul, the first guy with the horse, he owed money to the guy who was the second guy, who was also a Gilgul, right? So when he lost his money, and the second guy came and found it, he paid back his debt to that fellow, right? It was the amount of money that he had refused to pay him in the first Gilgal, and now he was forced to come back in a Gilgal to pay him back the money that he had refused to pay him then. What happened then was that this guy, the second guy in the previous Gilgal, when the first guy refused, so he went to the Rav, he called in the first guy to a Din Torah, and they went in front of the Rav, and the Rav, he didn't do a proper Din Torah. He didn't do proper Drisha and Chakira to figure out who was really, whether the taina was a correct taina or not taina, whether he owed him money, didn't. He didn't do a proper Din Torah, and he pattered the guy from paying, so he didn't pay the debt. So therefore, the third guy, who was the ani, who got beat up, he was the Rav, and he was getting beat up because he had done an improper Din Torah. So that's how the Baal Shem explains the Zohar. So Sternbach brings down
He
this.
got beaten up by the
I'm sorry?
second guy because the second guy was the one that got done out of the money.
Yeah. So now he got the money.
Yeah, but he should have been the one to beat up because he had the taina. The first guy didn't
No,
have
but
a
his taina, wait, because of his taina, he's not chayiv makas.
No, I understand.
The dayan is chayiv malchus for not doing a din Torah properly.
No, but the guy who gave him the malchus in the second Gilgal should have been.
No, he's upset at him that he gave him improper money.
Yeah, but the
No,
Gilgal
he was
he
done
doesn't
out
need
of
to
the
do
money.
something wrong because of it.
yeah.
He was done
What
out
up?
of it.
But my question is, why is the debtee there in the first place if he doesn't know anybody any money?
I'm sorry?
Why is the guy who lent the money in the first place there in the Gilgal if he didn't know anybody money? And the Gilgal was only for the guy who owed the money.
So you're making a tragic error. You're making a tragic error. We think that the Gilgal was somebody else. There was a previous Gilgal. There was Yankel and Shmerel and Beryl. And now in this Gilgal, there's me, and that neshama sort of like takes over me or something, somehow or other. But I'm really a different person, and that Gilgal was a different person. We assume there's a very, very big mistake. People make a very, very big mistake. We think that when a person dies, when I die, I'll be dead. It'll be dark. It'll be black. Who knows? Right? And I'll be dead. I'll go to sleep for 1,000,000 years, right? 100,000 years. You go to sleep for 100,000 years. Yisrael Salanter says it's a very fundamental error. You want to understand death, you have to understand the mashal. You walk in the door. You take off your coat. You hang your coat on the hook, and you walk into the room. That's what death is. In other words, you are the guy inside. The body is just a coat. This whole body is just a coat. When a person dies, they put the body in the ground, but the soul comes out. And who's the soul? It's me. I am the soul. I come out, I separate. During my lifetime, I'm the guy inside. I tell my arms to move, I tell my legs to move, I tell my mind to think, and I think through my brain, but I'm the guy inside. I'm like an astronaut who wears a spacesuit, right? But when the spacesuit is put into the ground, I separate. This is totally different than the way people think about death. Death, it's my alter ego, it's my distant cousin, some splintered version of me. But I'll be dead, safely dead. That's a mistake. When I separate after 120 years, it's me with all my thoughts and all my feelings, not my distant cousin, not some alter ego. It's me.
But without memory.
No, when you die, you have all your memory.
Oh, it's only the Gilgal that.
Here, when we are in this world, in order that we should have free will, so Kodesh Baruch Hu wipes clean. I'll give you a shtickle mashal that maybe you're more familiar with. They say that when the baby is in the mother's womb, right, it learns Kol Torah Kula. There's a malach there, it's got a roommate. He's got a chavrusa, he's got a malach, and they teach him Kol Torah Kula. And then as he's coming out, the malach gives him a whap on the mouth. He smacks him on the mouth, and he forgets all his learning. Forgets everything. So we don't remember. I don't remember learning Kol Torah Kula. I don't remember learning Choshen Mishpat and Bava Basra and Erechin and Negoyim, Negoyim and Kol Torah Kula. I don't remember that, but it's there. It's there. Now, when we separate, the morale says a very important thing. If you see a Talmud Chacham, great Talmud Chacham, a great Talmud Chacham, or a parent or a grandparent, and you see that at the end of their lives they come down with Alzheimer's, and they become mamish. If a person with Alzheimer's, mamish becomes like a vegetable. Becomes like a vegetable. I remember there was a big Talmud Chacham in Ezra's Torah. I forget his name right now, but a very big Talmud Chacham. He was a goin, and he was in Neve Simcha, and I saw him in a wheelchair, and he was a vegetable. He had Alzheimer's, forgot all his learning. Says the morale, his learning is still there. We think through our brain. People think, the scientists, they don't want to believe this. They try to deny all this. So they say, we are the brain. They're making a mistake. I am not the brain. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes it that I use my brain to think. How many times we get an inspiration? All of a sudden I'm inspired and I understand I have a flash of an inspiration, but I can't concretize it. Then I have to use my slow, sluggish brain to concretize it and to understand what I just had a glimpse of. Who had that glimpse? It was me, the guy inside. I'll give you another mashal. You see a big crane, one of these big, it's got the arm and it can lift up trucks, it can lift up big boulders, it works on building, take these, it carries blocks, from the ground and puts them on top of the building. It's a giant crane, it's mamish. You think, right? And you think so Joe says, there's Joe, he's the crane operator. You think he's a big brute, he's as strong as a gorilla, and you see Joe, he's got a pot belly, a beer belly, and he's sitting back, and he's, maneuvering everything, and he's so strong. I said, Joe, I think you better go out, go to the gym and work out a little bit, get rid of your beer belly, you're full of flab. But he's strong because he's the guy inside. And there's a guy inside. My body is the machinery that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us to maneuver ourselves in this world. But I'm the guy inside.
So in the next world, I'll remember all my Gilgulim?
Yes.
So I have 4 Gilgulim.
All of a sudden, when a person pops out of his body, he will all of a sudden remember everything. Everything goes, it just comes right back to him instantaneously.
But it is possible to have small past life regressions in this world.
Sorry?
Is it possible to have small pieces, snippets of...
There are books.
It's been recorded.
I personally think
it's
I'm
been.
Holocaust. I don't know. I have these crazy thoughts.
Yes, we can have inclinations. There have been recorded.
Is that crazy right there?
It's not. Nothing is crazy. Nothing is crazy. It's possible, but it's small inclinations, small hints, small hints of what went on. Small hints of what went on.
Would you just say nothing is crazy
Nothing is crazy.
about him?
He didn't say no one is crazy.
The muscle that the strong guy was also. That was also me.
No Lashon Hora this year.
That's not hard.
Okay.
Good craziness. You give me that stuff there. 4 or 5 Google and like, who are you?
Can you have to go give him a...
Who are you? Binyamin?
I don't know who I am.
There's
Scary question for people.
This is like
let's start understanding this concept. Let's start understanding this concept that I'm the guy inside. That there's I am inside, and this body is just my spacesuit. It's like a spacesuit. I'm like, and when they put the spacesuit in the ground, my body comes out. In previous generations,
Used to call people astronauts
Space,
in the old days.
Spaced out.
He's an
spaced
astronaut.
out.
yeah. In the old days, so we had so we had hints. We had sometimes the Kodesh Baruch Hu allowed us to see dibiks. Dibiks are lost souls. They never made it into Gan Eden. They're just floating around. And sometimes, as an onish for certain of us living individuals, they take over a human being, and therefore he's got somebody else inside of him. That's a dibik. It's very, very painful to have a dibik in you, and there are very, very many recorded instances of dibiks, and there's al pi Kabbalah, there's certain ways of getting rid of it. They said Rav Elchanan was sent by the Chafetz Chaim to a certain place to get rid of a dibik, and that's about the last time that we had a dibik. They said Rav Tusky once took out a dibik. I don't know if it was true or not, but yeah, there was certain
Someone in your
person.
neighborhood, Rob, that you know, did a dibuk?
They say he did. I don't. That's the question. I would trust the story about the dibuk of the Chafetz Chaim that Rav Elchanan was sent to take out. Chafetz Chaim was a big bucky in Kabbalah, and he knew exactly how to get rid of it, and told Rav Elchanan how to get rid of the dibuk. That's that.
When I come home, I see the book.
We do, Kodesh Baruch Hu took away our ability to have interactions with dibuks for now over 100 years. But another phenomenon has come forth, which has been verified thousands of times. In 1979, there was a fellow, Raymond Moody, and he was a scientist, and he wrote a book. Raymond Moody, he wrote a book, and it caused a stir in the scientific community. He called the book Life After Life. He was a physician, and he came across a phenomena that was unknown at the time, and he had to give it a name. It didn't have a name. So he called it a near-death experience, NDE, near-death experience. I don't know if it's an accurate accurate title. He calls it near death. For some of these people, it's near death, and for some of the people, it's a real death. We will see in a second. Now, since he...
What American Airlines, huh?
Sorry?
What American Airlines?
Oh, it's called... Now, we're a few decades later, since 1979, and 1979, it's almost 50 years. So it's been verified, and since then, thousands and thousands of cases have been documented. He wrote the first book, and since then, tens or scores of other books have been written by scientists, by physicians, by surgeons, by nurses, verifying thousands and thousands of these cases. There's a site on the internet. And they have thousands of these documented cases of near-death experience. Now, most of them are very short-lived. We'll see. What is it? For a few minutes, let's say for 2 minutes or 4 minutes, a person is literally dead. He's dead. No heart, no brain. if they have, there's no brain activity, there's no heart activity, he's not breathing, and then they are resuscitated. Now, during this time, they could not have seen what was going on around them. And when they come back, they give very, very vivid details of what happened when they were dead. They can say, they see the emergency workers working on them. They can see the doctors. They can see the nurses. They can hear the whole conversation. And they tell over the conversations to the doctors. And the doctor says, how'd you know? They're shocked. Now, of course, the scientific community is trying to poo-poo this. It's just hallucinations. But you can't make these stories up because they know things that it was impossible to know. The Lancet magazine, a prestigious medical journal.
British.
What did I say?
Prestigious.
Prestigious. British. It's a British medical journal.
No, British prestigious.
I'll take out the prestigious. I'm not sure.
Leave the prestigious in. Just put the British.
Let's go together. It's a contradiction.
It's a prestigious British medical journal.
There you go.
It ran a study of a few hundred near-death experiences. Let me tell you two of these stories. The 44-year-old man, and when the ambulance arrived at the scene, he was in a car accident, and the ambulance came, he was unconscious, he was dead. He was not breathing, he was dead, he was turning blue. They put him into the ambulance, they brought him into the emergency room, and as soon as they got into the emergency room, they wanted to put a machine on him, maybe it's a defibrillator. For some reason, they had to take out his dentures. They realized he had dentures. I'm not sure, I have two versions of the story. One version of the story, they want to intubate him, and they couldn't get into mouth because of his dentures. The other version of the story is they wanted to put paddles on him, and they were afraid the dentures would absorb the electricity, because the electricity goes through the body, so they had to take out the dentures. So they took out the dentures. The nurse took out the dentures, put them in the top drawer of the little table, the wheel and table, and then they worked on him. They put the paddles. They shocked him once, nothing happened. They shocked him twice, nothing happened. Shocked him the third time. Finally, he came back. They brought him back. They got a pulse, and the man survived. So after this is over, a little while later, as he's recovering, he asked one of the nurses, "Can you find my dentures?" She looked all around. She couldn't find the dentures. Didn't know where the dentures. Every time a new nurse came in, he said, "Can you please try to find my dentures?" He was very uncomfortable without dentures, as you can imagine. So he didn't have dentures. A week goes by and nobody can find his dentures. He asked all the nurses on duty, "Where can you please try to find my dentures?" They looked all over, they couldn't find them. One day, the nurse who had been there at the time of the emergency, she had taken a vacation for a week. She now came back in there. And she walked in, and he said, "Hey, aren't you the nurse who was here when they brought me in the emergency room? You took my dentures, and you put them in the top drawer of that of the wheel table."
Why you waited for a week?
She didn't come back. She was on vacation.
It wasn't
The nurse, this nurse.
Drawer.
They had wheeled it out somewhere else. These things are on wheels, and then he was in they put him in a different. Was in the emergency room. Now he's in a ward. It's a different, table.
It's a British hospital, so.
So she looked at him. She looked at him. She says, "Oh." She looked at him and says, "Oh, you're right." So she looked all over the floor. She went back to maybe the emergency room, and she remembered the table, the wheel table that she had put the dentures in. She opened up the top drawer. There they were. The problem was that he was totally dead. How did his eyes were closed. He was dead. And he saw the lady, the nurse, taking out his dentures and putting them. He knew exactly that she was putting them in the table. It was not possible for him to see the table. He wasn't even looking at the nurse. He was dead, and yet he saw everything. That's one story. Second story. Hundreds more like this. 100 more like this. There was a 36-year-old woman. She had an aneurysm, a bleeding in the brain when a vein expands and starts getting weak, and it starts bleeding inside the brain. It's called an aneurysm, and it's fatal. If they don't take care of it, it's fatal. So usually what they do is they go in and they take a hot probe. They take a hot probe and they put the hot probe and they cauterize. They burn the area where it's bleeding, and that sears sears the vein and sears the skin, and it stops the bleeding. It's a way of stopping the bleeding. It's called cauterization. The problem with her is that it was so deep. So by going in, there would be residual bleeding from going in and tampering with the other blood vessels. It would cause other bleeding in the brain, and that bleeding she would have bled to death. It was impossible to do. So one bleeding taking care of one bleeding would cause other bleeding. It was not possible to treat her aneurysm. The surgeon said to her, "Madam, I'm sorry to tell you this, but there's nothing we can do for you." They sent her home to die. Before she left, one surgeon said, "I'd like to have a talk with you. Madam, I've never tried it before, but I have a theory. There's a procedure called standstill. What do? They put you under anesthesia, drain all the blood from your brain. The surgeon goes in, opens your scalp, cauterizes the area. There's no residual, closes you back up again, and put the blood back in the brain. If there's no blood in your brain, so then you're not going to bleed when we go into cauterize. If the surgeon works quickly enough, theoretically we could save your life, but we've never tried it. It's all theoretically."
Sign me up.
Oh, she's gonna die either way.
So there was no alternative. She consulted many doctors, many professionals. She consulted with her clergy. There was no alternative. It's either that or die. So she decided to try it. But there could be no bleeding. There could be no bleeding. That all the blood had to be drained out of her brain. The day of the operation, they put tape over her eyes, special monitors in her ears. They put her body in a bath of ice to lower her body temperature. So she's under anesthesia. So they lowered her core temperature as low as they possibly. They basically froze her so that she's not functioning anymore. Right? They drained all the blood out of her head. The surgeon went in, opened her scalp, found the region of the bleeding. He cauterized it, sealed her back up. He sewed her back up again, closed the scalp, put the blood back into her, took her body out of the bath of ice, took her out of the anesthesia, and miracle of all miracles, she survived.
The miracle is that she's not brain dead.
There's no oxygen.
She had no oxygen to her brain.
There's no oxygen in the brain.
But they did it so fast, and since they lowered the core temperature, so the whole body was in slow motion. That's one of that was why they lowered the body temperature. The body's in slow motion, so it doesn't deteriorate.
Don't try it at all.
When you're trying to discipline your kids, don't try it.
Slow them down.
Okay, so as she's recuperating, right? So the surgeon comes in to visit her and see how she's doing, and the surgeon walks in. So she starts laughing. "Doctor, I have to tell you, this is the funniest thing. It was the funniest thing. I popped out of my body, and I was hovering over you on the ceiling, and I was looking down, and I was watching while you were operating on me, and then you took this electric toothbrush, and you tried to put it into the vein on my thigh. And I thought that was the funniest thing because you're working on my brain, but why are you going into my thigh? But you tried to put this electric toothbrush into my thigh, and it didn't fit. So you turned to the nurse next to you, and you said, it doesn't fit. And she said, try again. So you tried a second time, and you said, it doesn't fit. And the nurse says, try a third time, try again. You tried a third time, and it fit. Doctor, isn't that funny? Doctor didn't laugh. The doctor turned white. He had an instrument. He had to go into her thigh for some part of the procedure, and to drain the blood somehow, possibly. I don't know exactly what it was. And they had an instrument. From a distance, it looks like an electric toothbrush. And the vein was too small, and he couldn't fit it in. He tried it once, and the nurse said, try again. And third time, finally he was able to get it in. And she described the bits, like you have on a drill, you have bits. So she said, you took those funny toothbrushes out of the container on the table. The doctor says, she could not have seen that. It was covered. Every piece of that instrument was covered. It was sealed in its box, and it was covered by a cloth, to keep everything, clean and everything. It was impossible for her to see anything, and she's basically dead, and she's hanging from the ceiling. And she remembered vivid details. She remembered the dialogue that he had with his nurse. We have to realize, this is Rav Yisrael Salanter. I am not my body. My body is just my coat. I am occupying this body. I'm the occupant of my body when I leave. When I leave after death, I go into the next world, and my body goes into the ground. Now, if we don't believe that one, but there are thousands of these. The most vivid that I've come across, I've read many, many, many of these incidents, and they have the body. This is very rudimentary, because they didn't go anywhere. They stayed. The person, the soul, the consciousness, whatever you want to call it, it went to the ceiling and hovered at the ceiling. That's why they call it a near-death experience. That's what most of these things are. What about people who actually went to the next world and came back? There have been a few of these. They talk about going to next.
That's one interpretation.
Harry Potter.
That's one way to interpret what happened.
What's the other way?
Well, I'll tell you where the problem arises. Okay, what is a soul? A soul is something that's spiritual, right?
Yes.
Spiritual is not bound by physical.
We're running out of time. Let me get to Alon Anava.
What?
Alon Anava. He had this experience, and he remembers everything that happened, which is totally amazing. And he's got a story. He said he grew up totally secular. He hated religion. He had anything to do with religion. He was like a brick wall when it came to anything religious. When he was 23, he went to the United States. And in 5 years, until he was 28, he built up an empire. He built a business. He became a millionaire. He was very, very successful, and he was living it up. When he was 28, he says, and it happened to have been Friday night, Erev Pesach. He says that was an auspicious day, Friday night, Erev Pesach. And he was at a party, and They were doing like, all good secular Jews do when they go to a party. And they were smoking. And somebody had this smoking device. And they were passing it around. And he didn't know what was in it. And he took a few puffs. And all of a sudden, he felt sick. He felt sick. He felt like he was going to explode. He didn't feel like he was going to vomit. He didn't feel physically sick. He felt like he was going to die. He told his friend, we got to get out of here. I have to go home. I have to go home. So they get in the cab. They're in the west side of Manhattan. He gets into a cab. They're in the back seat of the cab. The cab is driving, and all of a sudden he starts choking. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. He opens the window. Maybe he'll get some fresh air, and all of a sudden, the world froze. Everything froze. Time stopped. He's looking at everything. He's looking at everything, and everything stopped. Like you're watching a movie and you push the pause button, and the movie stops. And his mind is racing 1,000 miles an hour, and he says, I'm going to die. I'm about to die, and now I'm going to meet this famous God that everybody was talking about, and I realized for the first time in my life that everything I have is staying behind. I had a lot of money. I had a big company. I had a gorgeous car. I had a beautiful house. Everything you could wish for. I had it. And I realized for the first time I was running after my entire life. It was nonsense because I can't take it with me. Everything is staying behind. I'm going into Shemayim empty-handed. He all of a sudden understood these things. Like it came back to him. Like when we're in the mother's womb, we learn Kol Torah Kula. So it's not just, like I said, Choshen Mishpat and Gemara Sanhedrin and Bava Basra and Kadush. It's not just that. You know everything. You know that you have to have mitzvahs, and you know that you're not allowed to do aveiros. And all of a sudden, when he came into this new state of existence, that he was leaving his body, as he was leaving his body, you call it the soul. It's him. It's not that there's a soul.
That's the word that the Chazal use.
Neshama.
And that's, yeah. And
They use the word neshama.
and
The question.
That's the phenomenon that you're referring to.
But what Yisrael Salanter is telling us, that's right. That's right, but we have to understand, I agree, but you have to understand, I am the neshama. The neshama is mine. My conscious, you're right, I can't, it's been...
You are both a soul and a body. That's a you.
No, but my consciousness, that's what,
also
this is what but what he's saying, and what he's saying is that your conscious, just like I have I feel I. Wherever I go, I say I, me, right? The AT&T, they did a survey. I don't know what gave them the right to listen to people's conversations, but they did a survey, and they found the most used word right?
It was in terms of service, you never.
Right. The most used word in all the conversations was I. Yep. I is the most used word. I. Right?
But that I
is
both
it's just
it turns both the soul and the body into objects in its possession, which is why you can say my soul and my body. That I that you're talking about it's something higher than both the soul and the body.
But
that's both the soul and the body
that could be
as objects of possession.
Well,
they belong to me.
Who's you?
No, but whatever the body's consciousness, maybe that goes into the ground. But I when after 120, when I pop out of my body, I still have my same consciousness. I don't feel a change.
Who said that?
That's what
That's what these people experience. Where's that written in Chazal?
You're right. I'm talking about what this person experienced.
Yeah, but
so no, I want to get to the point. I want to get to. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's going to be technical. Whether there's something else riding on top of there are things riding on top of the I. There's all my emotions and my feelings and my taivas and everything like that. And when I get, that's the question: do they go with me? According to Mesil Shishurim, according to the Risul Salanter, yes. According to Victor Miller, that the bad midas that you developed in Olam Hazeh, you take with you. So you take with you. So these things you take with you. Maybe it wasn't there originally, but if you became a Baal Taiva, you take it with you.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with.
Okay, so we're arguing over
with the words. I'm arguing with the
but we're running out of time. We're running out of time. This is a very interesting story, but it's true what he's saying. He felt his consciousness, his recognition of I continued. He didn't feel any difference. It's just that, well, we'll see.
Then what happened to him afterwards?
So what happened? So he realizes that he's going there and he has no mitzvahs, right? How do you know? He just knew that he didn't have any mitzvahs, and all of a sudden he said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Properly, Ado. He said. Everybody asked him, how'd you know that pasuk? You were a secular Jew. He says, I just knew. I knew I had to do something. I knew how to say a mitzvah, and this I knew what to do. I knew this pasuk somehow or other, and he said the pasuk. He said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Shem Echad, and then he fell down dead on the cardiac arrest on the back seat of the car. All of a sudden, there's a partition, the windshield, the partition between you and the driver in the cab, right? And he sees this partition, the glass partition before the driver, and he dives through the partition and out of the cab, and now he doesn't know where he is. He's in a place. He says he was in a place, and it was dark, Yeah. You got to see the other picture. What he looked like before then. That's after he did tshuva. Yeah.
Smoking. He's
I don't know
smoking.
I'm not sure which is.
Yeah.
Oh, it's this
So he was in a dark place, and there was no sound. We're running out of time. I have to go into fast forward here, and there was no sound. It was totally quiet, and he heard a voice, "Look down." And he looked down. He doesn't know where the voice came from, but he has no body. He says, "I'm a cloud." He realized he's a cloud. He has no body. He doesn't have to move his head, but somebody told him, "Look down." So he looked down, and he's following the cab. The cab is speeding towards the hospital, right? And it passed by a building. And all of a sudden, he looks into the building, and the building had 40 apartments, 100 people, 300 people. He looked into everybody, and he was experiencing everything that was going on. He understood their minds. He understood their emotions. One person was eating. Another person was yelling at his wife. Another person was reading a book. And he knew everything about their lives, their past, their present, their future. Just by looking at them, he had the ability to recognize everything about them in a split second. Then the cab went under an overpass. And he's getting higher and higher and higher. And as the cab goes into an overpass, he's following the cab. He's following the cab. And the cab goes under an overpass, and he went into the overpass. And all of a sudden, the only way he can explain it is you have a computer screen. Now, we see a computer screen, it's a beautiful picture, and it's a wonderful, internet site. It's a wonderful site, and you press buttons, and it does this, and it plays videos, and it's a very, very well-made site. Very well made site, and it's very beautiful. If you take the screen off, theoretically, and you want to see what's behind this program, it's a program that somebody wrote, and it's a bunch of letters. It's a bunch of letters and lines and strings. And it's in computer language. He went into the overpass. And he saw the language of the fabric that makes up the universe. And it was a conglomeration of Hebrew letters, just like computer language is conglomerations of zeros and ones and zeros, right? And DNA is a conglomeration of four proteins. They've got the language of DNA. It's a computer language. DNA, right? Anybody says that we came from, that just happened. It's a language. It's a Windows didn't. It's intelligently designed, right? The DNA is a language. It's a computer language. Bill Gates says it's not shaykh. You can't just drop a disk from 100 stories up and it goes on the drops down there and all of a sudden computer program occurs on it. So he saw the fabric of the language of the universe. He got higher and higher and higher. He was taken into the grips. All of a sudden, a black thing grabbed him. He felt tremendous pain. He was taken through a tunnel with swords and blades on scraping his skin. It was but there was no time. He was in a place with no time, because time is a function of Olam Hazeh. He was in a place of no time. It felt like 1 billion years that he was in the grips of this black thing. And as he's in this black thing, and he knew, I can't do tshuva, but I could do hero tshuva. He knew this. I could do hero tshuva. Hashem, save me! And he was yelling to Hashem. It felt like 1 billion years. And all of a sudden, a light came out of the distance, a pintala, a star, and it got brighter and brighter. I'm making it very quick because we're running out of time. It got brighter and brighter until he was enveloped in light. And it was the most wonderful feeling. This light surrounded him. And he knew that Hashem was standing behind the light. And all of a sudden, he knew everything. He knew everything. This thing, he gives a mashal of this thing. This is just a piece of metal. It's dead. Maybe you could take pictures with it, play a few games on it, snake, what can you do with it when it's dead? The snake, the old days, yeah. Right? You hook it up. You hook it up to the internet. You hook it up to Google, right? You punch in a few things. You know everything. You're all of a sudden a genius. He got into this light, and they hooked him up to the intelligence, to the das of the olam, and all of a sudden he knew everything. And he saw the whole world. He saw the whole world from the beginning until the end. He knew everything. And he said he had a panoramic view of the whole universe. And he says, who made this? It's genius. This is genius. And he looked at the things in this world, and, we have AI and all these wonderful inventions that we're inventing. That's Lego. That's children's Lego. Whoever invented the world, whoever created the world, it's genius. It's so much, it's not child's play. And he understood everything. And he understood his life. And to make a long story short, they took him into the courtroom, and they showed him the video. This was your life, and he was able to relive his life, his whole life, from the beginning to where he is now, and everybody's watching him, and he's standing there naked without any mitzvahs. Naked means he had no mitzvahs, because what is the clothing? What is the clothing of the next world? Mitzvahs. We say in davening, before you put your talis on, there's a l'shem yichud there, and it says, so when you get to Olam Haba, you're going to have, the mitzvahs are going to be the clothing that you're going to, he was naked, and he was so embarrassed. Bekitzer, they said, you have nothing, we'll give you a chance, either you go back to the black thing, or you go back again, but you have to be religious Jew. He didn't have a choice, of course. He knew he didn't have a choice. He says, where do I sign? Where do I sign? He made a deal with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and as soon as he made a deal with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, it's like he signed the contract, or like he shook the Kodesh Baruch Hu's hands, the contract. He felt like, all of a sudden, like a train hit him, and it pushed him back into his body. And he woke up, and his friend was standing there. You were dead! And now he's going around in Eretz Yisrael, in America, is giving shirim. So, Be'ez Hashem, the lesson is, whether neshama, me, whatever, of course it's all covered over. Me is all covered over with all the darkness of Olam Hazeh. But I will remain forever, and after a person passes away, he remains forever and goes to the next world, and we have to have a shir on we have to now start preparing for the next world and taking life seriously and realizing that we have to make ourselves better, get rid of all the bad clothing that we're wearing, so when we get into the next world, we should be able to not have any stained clothing and have proper clothing and enjoy the next world properly.
Stop.